Okay, great. Thanks very much. So I'm Jennifer Peters and Mary Trant sitting beside me. I'm a librarian at Seneca College, and I also work in teaching and learning for half of my time. And Mary's a teacher here at Seneca. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. So today we're just going to go through Adobe Spark and the experiences we've had with it, and hopefully we will ignite some creativity amongst our attendees. So if you would like to access this Spark after we're done talking about Spark, you can visit it at bit.ly/Adobe Spark AL. And I'll also put that into the chat box too, so that you'll have that link to access this page afterwards. And also, please feel free to type your questions in the chat box, and we'll address those throughout the session. We've turned off the audio and video just to make the sound a little bit better and the connectivity a little bit better. So, we'll come to your questions at a couple of different spots in the presentation. So what is Adobe Spark? It's a free online and mobile graphic design app. So you can create some sort of simple examples of digital media using Spark. Things like graphics, videos, and scrolling web pages. And it's really great for somebody who's never used any kind of digital media development tool before. You can access the presentation at the bit.ly link. I'll type it into the chat box so you can visit it. So this is a great tool to use if you're faculty and you've never created any digital media teaching materials, or if you want to do some sort of digital media project with your students and they've never done any kind of digital media development. This is a great entry tool for those types of folks. So on this page, we've linked some examples of how pages and videos and posts are being used in classes. So you can click on the links there to see those. Sorry, just a participant cannot hear my voice. So, okay, doing some troubleshooting there. So why would we want to use something like Adobe Spark with our students or in our teaching? There's a bunch of different reasons to use this kind of stuff with our students. It's an example of multimodal learning. So if you're creating video teaching materials or online learning modules, it's that multimodal learning. And it's been found to result in significant gains in basic and higher order learning. So that kind of theoretical approach. And also for universal design for learning guidelines, Spark is just one tool that we can use to achieve that multiple means of action and expression and multiple means of representation. So if we are creating this for teaching materials, then students can also, they might listen to our voice, but they might also hear or see graphics as well. Or the action and expression, maybe you give them an option of writing an essay or doing a project in Spark, which Mary will talk about what she's done with her students. And also digital literacies. At Seneca, digital literacies is one of our core literacies. And in courses where it makes sense and where we're able to, we hope to strengthen digital literacies among our students, but we also hope to strengthen our own digital literacies. So using a tool like Spark, it kind of allows you to flex that muscle a little bit. So Mary is going to talk about some of the ways she's done this with her students here at Seneca.
Hi, everybody. So what I am sharing are examples of some of my own projects. I have two of those that I'm happy to share with you, and also examples from a course that I was teaching last year in the winter semester. It's a psychology course called Brain and Behavior, and my students do a presentation on some kind of brain disease or disorder, and everybody in the class picks a different one, and then I asked them this time to try to use Spark. I didn't make them. I really encourage them to use Spark, so I want to share some examples of the projects that they created and what they did using Spark in terms of creating web pages. So the first example that I have is on prosopagnosia. And essentially, what I did was create a sample project for my students so that they would have a good idea about what I was looking for when I was looking at their projects. So I gave them the regular kind of handouts and outlines for how I was going to mark this. They had access to the rubric for it, but I also wanted to create an example for them to have a look at. So here's my Spark on prosopagnosia. So this particular Spark is a page. So it has all the information about prosopagnosia. I asked the students when they were doing this, rather than adding in the citations specifically afterwards with the quotes and things like that, to create little buttons in terms of the source information, because what they were pulling from essentially was web pages, and that made for a much cleaner, tidier page. Now, there are lots of options for doing this. They could have easily have put in proper citations. This is just specifically what I asked for when they were creating the pages. So you'll see these little source buttons through here as the students and I attribute the information to the source. So as we scroll down, the pages that are created here, essentially looking at brain parts affected, looking at what's going on in the brain, these are actually the headings that I asked them to gather information based on, and then add it in and, of course, cite the information and the sources that they were using to create this. Spark has a lot of images that are available right within the program. So the students were welcome to use those, and they were told if they used any other images, they were to attribute the source of the diagram or the image as well. So you will find those sort of things as we look through the projects. Kind of nice. In Spark, really easy to put in further information. So buttons for more information, custom buttons that go to particular tests or self-assessments. Lots of options in terms of making this page sort of interesting and interactive. This one does not have any videos embedded into it, so it has some links. It's really meant to be an information page. Okay, this piece, they're sitting here, but it's not part of the project itself. So you'll see farther up here, here's the key project, and then here's some extra stuff that I popped in. You can see what it looks like with the video, but the key parts of the project are these pieces up here. The other thing that I was going to share is a sample video. So this is a video that I created for a course that I was teaching online. It's actually the psychology of happiness. And what I started to do once I learned and started learning Spark is I created introductory videos for each week of the course so that I could give the students an overview and essentially start to knit together some of the various pieces of things and give the same kind of introduction that I would give during a regular classroom for, hey, here's what we're doing this week and here's where it all comes together. Now, we've muted the audio in this room just because of where we are and the background noise, so you couldn't hear my voice as I was talking. But the closed captioning is in here, so essentially the students get the visual, they get the background images, they can look at the closed captioning and read that, and there is an audio track of me speaking with a bit of background music that goes behind the video as well. Remarkably easy to create. And the closed captioning I did after I uploaded it to YouTube. I did the closed captioning within YouTube. So it's all set, ready to go essentially, and accessible for the students. And then I take the link for the video and put it into my Blackboard course for the students. I've been using learning modules in Blackboard essentially, so this was one of those pieces, but it works regardless of what you're doing. Essentially, here's the video that introduces this week. So my students also did some kind of interesting projects. various topics. So you'll have a look at essentially just a range. This particular one is on concussion and concussions. Their layout is different, and you can see some of the options in terms of just possibilities, embedding videos, adding pictures, adding information, buttons. These ones definitely blend in better than mine. Mine kind of really stand out as buttons. These are just clickable links. But lots of options here in terms of the layout and how the students organize the pictures. If you go back in later and view the presentation, the links are live, so you can check out the links to the students' work to see the kinds of things that they did. Here's one on aphasia, embedded videos, images, types, and as we scroll down through the page, lots of different pieces of information. Source definitions, being able to click to find more information, which is really nice, something that is difficult to do with something like a PowerPoint where you say, hey, here's some extra stuff, but these are actually embedded right in the bits and pieces. So the students, if they find this and they're interested, they can go outside and they can go over to another source of information. So the students actually quite like this as a way to organize and a presentation kind of style. They shared these online. We used a blog and they shared them, and then they went in and commented on each other's, there's Capgras syndrome, and they commented on each other's and gave feedback. And they actually, I love that, before I marked them. So we essentially did peer reviews. They posted them. They did peer reviews to identify things for each other for what worked or what didn't, or if something wasn't working or something wasn't making sense. And then they had a chance to correct and update stuff before I marked the final version. So it's interesting when we have a look at how the students use the same thing in terms of using Adobe Spark, creating a Spark page, but the layout and organization is quite different depending on how the student laid it all out and what their design choices were. This one's neat because it's a little bit different. It's a video rather than a page. So the student essentially created this page with all the information. It has background music, but it doesn't actually have audio. The student didn't want to speak, so everything is right on the video, and you can read through it or read the closed captioning on the other slides. So much like I created a video, this student created a video as well rather than doing a page. So now that you've seen some examples of some of the things that you can do with Spark, so I showed you a page, well, several pages, and then I also showed a couple of videos. Jen is going to come back on and she's going to talk to you about how-to materials and essentially some of the basics of Spark.
Thanks, Mary. So yeah, we've linked to some how-to materials here on Spark Video, Post, and Pages. They also have tutorials built into the software too. So if you go into the software, you can sort of launch those little tutorials. And also, we're just linking to some other resources we use, like designing digital assignments. If you do want to use Spark with your students, there's some things to keep in mind. We're doing a research study on using Adobe Creative Cloud products in teaching and learning. So that's sort of we're in our second year of that research study, so we should be having some data to report soon, as well as works consulted. So I'm going to hop into Spark and give you a demo of what it is to create an image, a page, and a video. It might look a little bit different the first time you log in because I already have stuff created. You'll see that I have I have a dashboard already. If you don't have anything created, it just sort of prompts you to start creating right away. So like I said, Adobe Spark is free. Yeah, Natalie, it's free. And we do have access to it at Seneca through our Adobe Creative Cloud account, but that only means that we get more storage. So I believe, I can't remember what the size is. I think our IT director told us that it was 2 gigabytes, but And then after that, you'd have to kind of get a pro account. But I haven't noticed students kind of hit a wall yet. So I'm not exactly sure. I tried to find some information online, but Adobe can be a little bit evasive sometimes in what the limits of their free stuff has. So, go on, create a free account. The only other thing that you get with a pro account is this manage brand. So you can add branding to your Adobe Spark account. So I went in and I added Seneca-ish colors and fonts and things like that. So if I wanted to create something that was branded for Seneca, I could, they would automatically kind of spit out a template for me in Spark, which is kind of neat, but I rarely create anything that's branded for Seneca. Most of my teaching material, I just do whatever is best for the actual topic. So this is my dashboard here, and something that I just noticed on Friday, which was super exciting, was now you can organize your projects by folder. So this was something that I always wanted before, but they never had, and I just noticed it on Friday. So I'm not sure when they added it. So you can actually organize things now, whereas before it was just one big scrolling long page of things. So that's exciting, where you can kind of organize things that way. And you can also share your projects. So you can collaborate with people. It's not synchronous collaboration like Google Docs, but it's something where, Mary shared this project with me, so I can go in and edit it. And then when I leave, she can go in and edit it, which is kind of exciting because they didn't have that before as well. So when you first go into Adobe Spark, you might see something that looks like this, but it might have a dark blue background. But what it basically is it's kind of prompting you to use a template. So it has a bunch of different templates listed here. And you can go in and say, I want to use this explainer video template, or I want to use this Instagram story template. It's totally, up to you. I'm going to start from scratch though. And if you're new in Spark, your start from scratch may be all the way at the bottom of the page, and you might see links along the bottom of the page here. But because I've been in Spark before, now they've moved my start from scratch up into the upper right-hand corner. So have a look around for it, and you should be able to see it on the page. So as you can see, we can create 3 different types of media: a static graphic, we can create that scrolling web page, or a video. And so we'll hop into the graphic program first. And because I have the branding activated in my account, it prompts me and says, do you want to build something that looks like it's from Seneca? And so you can start with that, or I can just say start from scratch. So to pick a size, let's say I'm going to create a poster, let's say. And right off the bat, it prompts me to add photos. So Adobe Spark is a very graphic-based program. It's always going to ask you to add photos to your things. And they have the integrated search for Unsplash and Pixabay and other royalty-free sites right in Spark, so you don't have to go anywhere else to find it. So let's create a graphic about, let's say, climate change, because that's something that's in the news these days. And let's see what we get for searching for an image for climate change. Okay, so it spits out some photos. I'm just going to pick some random photos here for climate change. So I'm clicking on them and it's saving them on my little bank over here. Let's say I pick, I'm going to pick 5 photos. And when I say next, you can also upload your own photos here too, if you'd like to. And I'm going to say next, and it's going to run its program, and it's going to spit out something that it thinks is going to look good. And there we go. So it sort of said, what do you think about this? It looks pretty good to me. I could go in and I could add text now. So I could double click in here. There, I could change some of the layout and color and filters on this now. If I don't click on anything in the poster and I just click somewhere in the regular outside of the poster, I get options over here. So I can change the variations of this. If I don't like the layout, I can switch it up a little bit. I could go into the color scheme and I could change the color scheme a little bit more, so make it a little bit more earthy looking. I could change the layout. So if I wanted to switch the photos up, I could do that. I could also resize it. You get a bunch of different things you can choose from in whenever you click on things. So if I click on the text, then I can change the font, I can change the size, the letter spacing, all that kind of stuff here. If I click on a photo, I can go in and I can add a filter to the photo. So if I wanted to make everything, black and white, I can make everything black and white, or I could add different kind of Instagram-y like filters to things. So you could really sort of create a color scheme for it. You can also do some like blurring and all the stuff that you would expect on an online photo editing tool now. You can also add additional photos. You can add additional text. You could add an icon. The icons come from the Noun project. So I could add in, a frowny face or something like that into the poster. So imagine using this with your students where they're creating maybe they're creating a poster for an advocacy issue or social justice issue. Maybe they're creating an invite to an event that they're having for one of their courses, or maybe you're creating an invite to a conference or something like that. This is an easy way to hop in, create some like a static graphic quite quickly using photos that are available through those royalty-free sites. And yeah, all the photos, they're available through the royalty-free sites. So they're through sites like Pixabay and Unsplash and things like that. Or you could add your own photos as well. And you could create something quite quickly. And then when you're done and you're happy with your poster, you can either download it, and you can download it as a PNG, a JPEG, or a PDF. So if you wanted to email it out, put it on a website, put it in a PowerPoint presentation, anything like that, you could do that. If you wanted to print it out, you could do it as a PDF. Or you could share it. You could share it directly from the Spark server. So if I create a link to this, I can go and open this up in a browser window, and it's just sitting on a blank page. So if I wanted to include this link in an email, maybe it's an invitation to a conference or something like that, I don't have to download it and re-upload it and do all that. I could just link directly to it. Where are we here? Lost my page. Here we go. So that's the creating a graphic piece of it. And I think it's a fun way to kind of dip in and try it out. If you have any questions, just put it in the chat box and we can answer that as we go along. So if we go back to the dashboard, and it saves it automatically too, so I don't have to keep clicking on save and that kind of thing. So Lisa says, are the citations embedded, or do you have to put the links in the document? So for graphics, the citations are not embedded, but for everything else, they are embedded. So for the graphics, if you're using something that needs to be cited, because some of the images that they link to, they're public domain images, and so they don't, those don't require citing unless, of course, you're asking your students to cite everything. So the ones that do require citing that are Creative Commons attribution, then the citation will be embedded automatically. The photos do not have alt text. So if you were creating an online learning module, you would definitely have to provide an alternative format for students that require that. And this session is being recorded. I believe the ETC is recording it, and they'll make it available later on. Okay, so we're back in Spark. And now I'm going to click on that big plus symbol in the middle of the page again, and I'm going to go back to start from scratch. And now we're going to go to web page. So if I click on web page, this is to build one of those pages that Mary was showing. We've also created our presentation in an Adobe Spark web page. And so we can start by entering a title. And then a subtitle. I don't want to be controversial, but I will be. So right away it's saying, okay, you need to add a photo to this header. You don't have to, but I'm going to add a photo. If you click on the little plus symbols that you're going to see throughout the page, this is where you can add content. So I click on plus photo, and I get this free photo search as well. So this is the same sort of free photo search that we saw in the graphic side of it. So if I click on that, I can search and find those same photos that I used in the poster side. So I can click and add the photo, and it does its best to make it high contrast between the title and the photo, so that people can actually see it. If you would like to move the title around, you can click and drag the title to the different quadrants of the page, and you can also center it. And you'll see that the shading behind the title will change to try and make sure that you can still see that title. So I'll leave it in the middle there. I think that looks good. And now to get started, you just say scroll to start writing your story. And so I can scroll down, and I'm prompted all along the way to start adding content. And at this point, I can add a photo directly in here. I could add text. I could add a button. A button is an external link. I can embed a video. So let's embed a video. I'm going to go back to YouTube and do a search for climate change, which I'm sure will yield a bunch of interesting results. There we go. So there's TV News. It's been posted by CTV News. So I could click on this, and let's say I'm going to embed this. I can just come here. I can grab the URL for it. And I go back to, where is it? This one here. Okay. I go back to where my video is. I click on video, and I can just post that URL to that video, click save, and it embeds it right in the page, which is kind of nice. AODA compliance for there's lots of different things out there about AODA compliance, about high contrast, so to make sure you can see titles. Different colors, you have to be careful about which colors you use, because some people can see certain colors and they can't see other colors. One site that you could try visiting for sort of a bunch of different tips on this is the Learning Portal. The Learning Portal is for college faculty in Ontario, and it's built by all the college libraries. And on the faculty toolkit, the AODA resources tab is really useful for faculty. It was built mostly by George Brown, the Corinne Abba at George Brown, and also Seneca also contributed some materials. But you can come here and learn about AODA best practices for faculty in Ontario. And we can include this link in, or actually, I will just paste this link in right now. There you go. But yeah, lots to keep in mind. The major thing here is, if you're doing a learning module in Adobe Spark Pages, is that you can share it as a PDF afterwards. So if you're in the Chrome browser and you click on share, and you click on publish and share, or sorry, print, you can print this to a PDF, and then you can get that PDF into Adobe, I think it's called DC, Acrobat DC, and you can start to make an accessible document of the actual page itself. So if you want to, you can come in here and print this out. This is actually kind of cool for reports too. So if you want to create like a really flashy report for a committee or something like that, you can come into Adobe Spark Pages and create the report in here. And it's just something a little bit different. I know our director in teaching and learning at Seneca has done this a couple times, and it looks really cool. Okay, so we're still building our page here. We've got our banner, we've got an embedded video. Now I wanted to show you Glide Show, because Glide Show is really kind of the magic behind an Adobe Spark page. And so if you click on Glide Show, you get a bit of a different sort of a structure to creating content. So you get your image search again. So I'm going to choose, let's say, 3 images here. I'm just going to pick 3 kind of random images. What is that? Okay, that's kind of scary. So we've got 3 images here, and it's saying, okay, do you like the way they're organized? You can move them up, you can move them back down. How would you like to organize them? You can replace each of the images too if you'd like to, but if you're happy with it, you can click on Save, and it creates a gliding page for you. So if you start scrolling down, you can see you've got the images in the background, and they're kind of zooming and panning. And then you've got a text box on top of it. So now I can go in and add content over these images. So we've got this box here. You can move the boxes around too. So if you want to move it to the center, you can do that. And now in here, we can add more content. So I can start by adding a title in here. Something like that. You can format the text a little bit. It is pretty restrictive, the Adobe Spark program. So once you get into it, you're going to start hitting walls every once in a while, like, oh, I want to customize this or I want to customize that, especially if you've done anything in Photoshop or anything like that. But it's a very basic piece of software, so you can only do a couple of things. That's why it's so great for students, because they can just go and create something really quick and not have to learn something like Photoshop or Premiere. So I can make it a heading 1. I can make it a heading 2. I can make it a pull quote, or I could do bulleted lists or numbered lists. And that's pretty much all I can do with the text. So I could say, I could put a button in here. So maybe I wanted to put a call to action of some kind in here. I'm just going to go grab a random URL so I can link to something. So a button, you put your text, what you want the button to say, and then you put the URL. And you can change the alignment of the button too, and just click Save. So now I have a button there. I could keep adding stuff. I could put another video in here. I could put another photo in here. Or I can go down to my next image in the glide show, and I could add content in here. So maybe for here, I wanted to put a video about flooding or something like that. So you like that pun? That was unintended, absolutely. So I'm going to make this a heading 2, just so that you can see what this looks like, because I'm going to change the theme, and the theme is going to change the look of everything. So I just want to make sure I have an example of what everything sort of looks like in here. So I'm just going to keep that as a title there, our little pun. And then this one here, maybe I will move the box over here so that it's not in the middle of the image, and I can add in, maybe I'll add in another photo over here. I don't know what that is, but I'll add it in. Another thing too about the images in the glide show, if you don't like the way that they are kind of situated, you can click on them and change the focal point of them. So you can't change them very much, but you can go in and you can drag the focal point up and down and sometimes side to side, so that you can kind of change how the image is situated on the page. You can't change it completely, but you can kind of adjust it. So that's the glide show. And then as you keep scrolling down, then you could do things like a split layout. You saw this in Mary's students' projects, where they had an image on one side and then they had additional text or maybe a video on the other side. So maybe we'll go look for an image on, or a video on pollution. And we'll just pop that video in there. Okay. Now, if we wanted to view what this looked like, I'm just going to scroll all the way back up to the top. And I could preview it now here. So I could go into preview, have a look what it looked like. So it's a scrolling web page. It'll just scroll down. When I show videos, when I look at videos, they go full screen automatically. So I can view the video automatically. full screen. I could close out of that video, come back to the presentation, or come back to the page and scroll down. If I didn't like the way it looked though, I could change the theme. So if I click on the theme, you'll see because I have that branding activated, we've got Seneca-like branding at the very top. So if I wanted to go into the more creative branding that Spark has, I can scroll down and click on some of these. So if I click on the different themes, it changes the look and feel of all the font, of buttons and things like that. So if I click over here and show you now, you can see that my heading 1 has changed, my button has changed, my heading 2 has changed. Let's choose something a little bit more creative so you can sort of really see the impact of it. Let's choose Teresa. So that's what heading 2 looks like now. We've got our heading 1 here, and our button looks like that. And now our title has a blue background. So just keep in mind that some of the themes in there are not AODA compliant. So they have really kind of cursive writing. They have a little bit kind of weird contrast happening, especially I believe it's Whimsy. Whimsy I don't think would be AODA compliant at all. So if you are using this for teaching materials and students, and you want to be AODA compliant, stick with things like Baldwin or Crisp or even Wellesley or Luca. Those tend to be better for viewing. And another thing to keep in mind too is that you can preview this as a web page, and it's that scrolling sort of thing that we have been looking at the whole time, or you can use it as an actual presentation. So this could replace a PowerPoint. So if I click on Present, it takes over my whole screen. And now when I'm using my cursor to go back and forth, just like I would in PowerPoint, it's more like a slide. So you can see it's more like a slide. The only issue with this is that if you have links in here where you want to go out and you want to come back in, that is a major issue. So this is a link here. I go out to this link. It takes me to this page that I linked to. And now when I try to go back, it's totally ended my presentation. So I'd have to launch back into my presentation, go find where I left off. So it's a major pain to do it that way. If you're doing a presentation where you're just showing people content and you're not linking out and coming back and doing live demos and things like that, then it works really well. And I've used it for a bunch of different committee presentations and things like that. And people are always like, wow, that's amazing, when really it took me 5 minutes to create. The embedded videos, no, those actually play really well in the presentation. So I'll show you. I'll hop back into the presentation, takes over my whole screen again. And this is the embedded video here. When I show the video, it looks really nice. It's nice and big on my screen. And then when I click End, it goes back to the presentation. So I can continue once again in the presentation. So videos are really excellent, but definitely not links to show things on other sites. After making the web pages, how can I put them in my own address? So you can't do it within Adobe Spark. So it's not like Bitly where you can put in a custom sort of link, but you could use a redirect page on your own server and put the Adobe Spark as sort of a redirect. It might be a little bit of a lag for for people that are viewing the page. But as far as I know, that's the only way to do it. If there's other folks out there that have better suggestions, then I'd love to hear it, because that is definitely a question that we get a lot. But to get an actual link to this page now, we can click on Share and Publish and Share Link. And this is where you can also invite people to collaborate with you. So if we click on Publish and Share Link, we get some options here. So I can toggle the author on and off, so I can leave it on. Here are all my photo credits here. So it's automatically created these photo credits. I could go in and I could adjust them. If I uploaded my own images or images that I got from somewhere else, I could go in and add them in here. This is on by default, where it adds your project to the Adobe Spark website. And I always click that off because I don't really need to add it to the Adobe Spark site. And then when I say Create Link, it gives me a link here. It also gives me embed code that I could use. So if I copy this link and I open this page in a regular browser, you'll see it's here, and it's that kind of scrolling type page that we are used to seeing now. If I go back to my project, and let's say I make a change here. So let's say I change the theme to Baldwin. You'll notice that it doesn't update automatically on the live page. What I have to do first is I have to go to Share, Publish and Share Link again, and now I have to update the link. So once I update the link, then it should dynamically update on the live page. So if I go back, it's the same URL, it doesn't change the URL, it updates automatically. So that's one thing. If you're doing this with students and they're making changes and you can't see them on the live page, just say to them, have you gone in and updated the link? Because that tends to happen because they're not used to that sort of workflow. Yeah, and the one thing I will point out is at the bottom of the page, this is where, let me go to the, oh yeah, Mary just wants to make sure that you see that anywhere there's a plus is where you can add stuff. So the pluses, they keep popping up. Every time you add something new, you'll see another plus pop up underneath it because it's sort of giving you the option to add content in between things, under things and all that kind of thing. Yeah, it looks terrible in the editor, but you won't see those in the live site. But the one thing I did want to show you is the embedded citations. So if you scroll down on the live site, you'll see that the embedded citations are right there. For all of the images that you use through their embedded photo search, they do the embedded citations. And you can also turn this Seneca off if you don't want, if you have branding activated, you could go into your settings and just toggle that off if you didn't want it. Okay, so that's creating a scrolling web page. It's not a website. It's definitely not going to give you the options to do multiple pages. It's just one long page. But it's a good entry kind of web page building tool for students and for yourself if you haven't done it before. Oh, good. I'm glad you guys like it. So the last kind of media that you can create is the video. So if we go back to Start from Scratch and video, and I've used quite a few video editing tools, and I have to say this is probably the easiest one that I've used. So automatically it starts that you need to give your video a title. So let's do something a little bit more fun. Let's do Halloween. And the neat thing about Adobe Spark is that they want everything to be story-based. So here they're giving you sort of a prompt to say, do you want to use a plot line? So do you want to use, a hero's journey or something like that? But I'm just going to start from scratch, but you can always start with one of those templates for a story. It's kind of neat for students, especially for business students, if you want them to create like e-pitch, like business storytelling and things like that. So this is a tutorial that pops up that you can watch if you want to have another orientation to it. And then this is the video editing tool. And right away, it wants you to start adding content. You've got your kind of workspace in the middle of the screen. You've got your kind of a slide sorter type of thing down at the bottom, and then you've got your toolbox on the right-hand side. So let's just start adding stuff in and see what happens. So let's go for a photo. And one of the things I would avoid is in this search, I would avoid the Adobe stock unless you have a membership to it or something like that. If you use any of the Adobe stock, it's going to have a big watermark across it. So I would just avoid it, and I'll go for free photos instead. So let's try Halloween. Ooh, okay, I'm going to choose this one because that's super creepy. So there's my first slide. I'm going to add a little bit of text to it. And maybe we'll say history of Halloween. Something like that. I can make the text bigger at this point. I can make it smaller. Maybe I'll make it smaller. That looks a bit creepy. And on the side for layout, you can see this is the full screen layout. So maybe for my next slide, I will add in a split screen. So I just come down to my slide sorter and say click on the plus here to add another slide in. And I'm going to click on split screen. So it'll give me something on one half of the slide. So maybe I'll do an icon here. Again, this is searching the noun project, so these are all royalty free. And I don't actually know the history of Halloween, so I'm just going to make it up. Let's try sort of Batman witch, maybe. Let me choose this ghost. That looks a little bit better. So I can click on the right-hand side of the screen, and I could add another icon, or maybe I'll add some text over here. It all began in, let me just pick a year, a random year, blah, blah, blah. And I could add in a little bit more text too. Someone passed away and then haunted someone. Okay. And then we'll add another slide in. This time I'll do a caption slide. I just want you to see the layouts for the different types of slides. You can add videos in here, and what it means by that is that you're actually uploading an MP4 in here. And the problem with this is that each slide is limited to 30 seconds. So this is sort of across the program, whether you have a pro account or not, every slide is 30 seconds. So if you have a 1.5-minute video, it will allow you to spread that 1.5-minute video over 3 slides, and it gives you a tool to be able to do that with. Otherwise, you can upload, a short little 30-second video in here that you've created yourself. You can't embed YouTube videos at this point. If you had a video that you had created yourself on YouTube, you could download that MP4 and put it in here, but there's no way to actually embed and have it play live. So I'll just add in another photo here. Let's keep it creepy. And the caption slide, it adds text at the bottom, sort of with a background of a different color. So something like that. And one more slide. One last slide, we'll add in title and text slide here. And this one, we can add a photo in the background. There's one there. And if you want to adjust the focal point of the, or sort of adjust the image a little bit, you can click on the pencil symbol and you can zoom things in, you can zoom things out, you can move the photo around just by clicking and grabbing and moving it. Let me move this down a bit, and we can add some title here, and then we can add 2 layers of text here. Okay, so that's a title and text. So you can add 2 layers of text there. Caption, you add text with a different colored background to it. Split screen, you get the option to put different things on each side of the screen. And then full screen is just one title in the middle of the screen, overlaid over maybe a color or a photo. And you can add video in behind any of these things too. So it doesn't have to be a photo, it can be video too. We had a question here. While working, can you use Control-Z to undo things? Yes, you can. You never used to be able to, but you can now. But you can only do it, I think, once. So it can't like undo 5 things ago. So kind of you have to do it right away. So we cannot use it for the long videos or adding the text and icons to them. You can add a longer video, but you'd have to add it over multiple slides. So you would need to, if you had a 2-minute video, you'd need to add it over four slides. And it has the little tool that allows you to keep extending the video over those slides. And then you can add text on top of those videos too. So if you have an idea, it's best to get in there and kind of muck around a bit and see if you can get it to work for whatever it is. If you want to do something a little bit more advanced, then that's when you might want to graduate to Adobe Premiere Rush, which is not quite Premiere Pro. Adobe Premiere Rush is more like iMovie. So you could use something like Apple iMovie or even Movie Maker if that's still floating around. But this is just for sort of basic videos where you have a picture and then some text, and then maybe your narration. And yeah, Humber says it's a great, looks like a great tool for students. It's a great tool for students to use because they don't have to learn how to use a full editing suite or editing program. So it's an easy way to sort of get in and create something quick. One thing I did want to show you is that in the middle of every slide, you get a microphone. And if you'd like to do narration, you can click and hold on the microphone. So let me allow it to access my microphone. If I click on this, hold it down, now as I'm holding it down, I can speak and narrate, and it's recording what I'm narrating. When I let go, it stops the recording. And if I want to record it again, I just press it down again and just re-record over top of it. So I have to record in one shot for each slide, but I go and then I go to the next slide and I record, and then I go to the next slide and I record. So it's also great for students because they can record slide by slide, which I think is really good for them if they don't have a lot of experience doing voiceovers. Also, with Adobe Spark Video, you've got a choice of different themes. It automatically added those sort of Seneca-y type things because I have the branding. But I can get really creative. I can add some very colorful themes here. So for Halloween, I could add this flare, which has a pink background, but I could also say, no, I want it to have orange background because it's a Halloween video. So you can see the colors are changing on all the slides. It sort of overlays that over like an Instagram filter type thing. So I can go in and see it's changed the look and feel of all of my slides. If this is for teaching materials, again, keeping in mind that AODA, where something like Sage probably won't work very well, something like Noir might work really well. Also, under our toolbox is embedded music. So I could come here and I could play any of these tracks to sort of preview them to see what they sound like. And then I could click on the actual title to add it to my movie. So I've got horror movie, so that would be perfect for this one. If I click on horror movie, now it's overlaying over all of the slides and playing a song through it. Yep, so if you wanted to share this video, you can click just on share, and that shares it directly from the Spark server. So it uploads it to the Spark server, and then you can just share a link. Or if you'd prefer to get an MP4 for yourself to either upload it to Blackboard or upload it to YouTube, you could click on download, and that gives you an MP4. And then you could upload that to Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, whatever it is. If you are doing an Instagram video, you might want to go over to resize, and you might want to create a square video instead of widescreen. If you click on square, it's going to fit in that Instagram feed a little bit better. And also, you can add people to your video if you'd like to collaborate too. So we'll just have a little peek at what the video looks like. It doesn't have any sound or anything. That kind of thing. It does all the transitions and everything for you. You don't have to do that. It's all built in. Now Seneca, oh, and there's our embedded citations again. Seneca is kind of embedded in this because of the branding, and I don't really want that. So I can just click on Seneca and say, hide it. I don't want to see the Seneca stamp there. And at the outro, I can just come here and say hide outro. So I can hide it from there too. I think that is pretty much it. Yeah, you can limit the slides to less than 30 seconds. So you'll see this little timestamp on each slide right here. Depending on if you've added voice to it, it will just stretch out to as long as your voice is, up to 30 seconds. And you'll see that it changes. Here it's 4 seconds. I could come here and edit it and make it longer, make it shorter. Thanks, everyone. And Mary and I are available for questions afterwards too. If you want to shoot us an email, we're happy to answer any questions through email.
Well, great job, you two. I just want to mention that our next webinar is on October 9th, I believe, and it's the Flipgrid skills. that came out kind of funny. So Flipgrid is basically an interactive sort of discussion tool allowing for audio discussion. So tune in on October 9th, 12 to 1 this time. And you can find events at the edtechontario.ca website. So thanks, everybody. And this was a great session. And we will be online for a little bit longer if you have your questions to ask.
Thanks, everyone. Yeah, we're still here to answer questions. It's just at that bit.ly link. So I'll type it in again so you guys have it. Floods are on the rise. Seriously. Oh, geez. You can't really upload the web pages to your website. You'd have to link to them. So it would sort of have to be a link out to something. It's not something that you could really sort of download and install on your server, that kind of thing. Not that I know of anyway. There might be a way to do that. I just don't, I've never done that. But we do link out to these types of websites quite often. They're great for learning modules because you can kind of enforce that sequential learning, which is kind of nice. Great, thank you.